In the quiet town of Harrowfield, everything seemed just right. It was a town where the streets were always clean, the houses looked like they were taken straight out of a picture book, and the people? Well, the people were as perfect as the town itself. And right at the heart of it all? Pastor Gregory Mills. The kind of man who knew everyone's name. The kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he spoke to you. The town loved him. They trusted him. He was their rock, their guide, their moral compass. Every Sunday, the church was packed. The pews were filled with families, couples, and children, all listening intently as Pastor Gregory spoke of faith, love, and righteousness. His voice had a way of making everything sound so simple, so pure. He made you believe that the world was still a good place, that people were still kind, and that hope was never lost. But, there was something else about Gregory. Something the people couldn't see. Something they couldn't even imagine. You see, behind those perfect sermons, behind that flawless smile, there was a side of him no one could ever guess. One day, as Pastor Gregory stood by the church doors, greeting people as they left the Sunday service, his eyes met Caleb Reeves, a young boy who had come to the church with his parents. Caleb was quiet, shy even, always a bit different from the other kids. He often hung back, watching from the sidelines, until Gregory gave him that special attention he always gave to those who were lost, unsure, or in need of a little guidance. Gregory noticed Caleb, as he always did. He called him over, gave him a smile that could melt anyone's heart, and offered to walk him to his parents. Caleb, a little nervous but flattered, walked beside him. And for a moment, just a brief second, their eyes lingered. A look. One that made Caleb pause. Not quite a smile, not quite a friendly glance, but something else. Something that didn't feel right. Caleb couldn't explain it. He brushed it off as nothing. Maybe it was just his imagination. Maybe he was overthinking it. But that moment stayed with him. And soon enough, the people of Harrowfield would begin to notice the same thing. The warmth in Pastor Gregory's eyes sometimes seemed a little too warm, his words a little too careful. But no one wanted to question the man who had guided them all for so long. He had never done anything wrong, had he? He was their perfect pastor. Why would they ever doubt him? But as perfect as everything seemed, there was something wrong that no one could see. No one could guess. And the cracks? They were starting to show. In the smallest ways, at first. Like the way Gregory held Caleb's gaze just a second too long during their conversations. Like how Caleb's unease began to grow every time they spoke. But what could he say? How could he explain a feeling he didn't even understand himself? But sometimes, the smallest of signs are the ones we ignore, thinking they're just coincidences. And when the cracks finally do start to spread, it's already too late. Pastor Gregory Mills, the man who seemed so perfect, so untouchable, was hiding a truth no one could have ever imagined. In Harrowfield, a place built on perfection, one man was about to destroy everything. And it all started with a look. A small, fleeting moment that no one saw coming. And this is just the beginning. Thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. For those who've been with us, thank you for your continued support. New viewers, welcome. Stay with us as we unravel the dark secrets of Harrowfield, and the perfect preacher who hides them. Keep watching, and don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. What started as something simple, a mentor, a young boy seeking guidance, soon twisted into something far darker. Pastor Gregory Mills, the man who had always been the town's perfect image of good, and Caleb Reeves, a boy who was lost in his own way. At first, it seemed harmless, a few quiet talks, a helping hand when Caleb needed it. But what began as mentorship, soon became something neither of them could control. Pastor Gregory was always there. He was patient, understanding. He listened to Caleb's fears, his doubts, his confusion about life. Caleb was a shy, troubled teen. He never quite fit in, always kept to himself. But Pastor Gregory, with his kind eyes and reassuring words, made him feel like he belonged. He made him feel special. And that was a feeling Caleb had never known before. The more time they spent together, the closer they grew. It started with innocent conversations in the church office, just the two of them. Pastor Gregory would ask Caleb how school was going, how his family was. But it didn't take long before their talk started lingering longer than they should. Before their glances held a little too much meaning. Before the touches on Caleb's shoulder lasted just a little too long. The lines between mentorship and something more began to blur. Caleb felt something growing inside him, a connection he didn't understand. Pastor Gregory's attention, his praise, it felt good. But there was an undercurrent to it. Something unspoken, but undeniable. And every time their eyes met, every time their hands brushed, Caleb's heart would race. He couldn't explain it. He didn't know what it was, but it was there, deep down, and it felt wrong. But it also felt right. One evening, after the last service of the week, Pastor Gregory asked Caleb to stay behind. The church was quiet, empty except for the two of them. Caleb felt his pulse quicken as Gregory asked him to help clean up, as if there was some urgent task that only the two of them could handle. But there was something more to it. There always was. Gregory stood too close to Caleb as they worked, his voice soft, almost whispering in the silence of the church. Caleb couldn't help but feel the heat of his breath against his ear. His mind raced. Was this normal? Was it okay? But before he could answer those questions, Gregory's hand brushed against his back. A touch that lingered just a moment too long. They both knew something was changing. They could both feel it. But neither of them dared to acknowledge it. It was a secret, one that neither of them wanted to face. But every time they were together, it was harder to resist. It was like they were falling into a trap, but neither of them was ready to escape. They continued meeting in secret, hidden conversations, stolen moments, late-night rendezvous that left them both breathless with something they couldn't name. Each time, the tension grew. Each time, the stakes got higher. Pastor Gregory would look at Caleb with a hunger that went beyond mere affection. And Caleb was confused, lost. He wanted to pull away, but something kept him there. He couldn't deny the way his heart beat faster when Gregory smiled at him, when he touched him just a little too much. It was clear, someone would get hurt. But in the heat of the moment, neither of them could see it. There was one night, though, when everything changed. They were alone in the church office. The lights were low, the air thick with anticipation. Caleb stood close to Pastor Gregory, so close he could feel the heat from his body. Their eyes locked. For a moment, it felt like time stopped. Caleb felt his breath catch, his body frozen, torn between fear and longing. And that's when it happened. Pastor Gregory leaned in. Just a little too close. His breath was heavy, his lips almost brushing Caleb's ear. The tension between them was unbearable. This was the moment. This was the point of no return. But neither of them knew that. They didn't see how close they were to disaster. How dangerously far they had fallen. It was too late now. The bond between them had already been formed. No matter how much they tried to deny it, they were both trapped in a web of lies, secrecy, and desire. And when that web breaks, when the truth comes out, someone will be shattered. In Harrowfield, a place where everyone thought they knew the truth, where everyone trusted Pastor Gregory Mills, the truth was about to come crashing down. And when it did, no one would ever be the same. Eleanor Mills had always trusted her husband. Pastor Gregory Mills, her rock, her protector, the man everyone in Harrowfield looked up to. They had built their life together, a perfect life. Or so she thought. But as the days passed, something began to change. Whispers. Rumors. The kind of quiet talk that drifts through the air like a fog you can't see but can't ignore. Eleanor had always prided herself on being the supportive wife, the perfect partner to a perfect preacher. But lately, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something was slipping through her fingers, and she didn't know what it was. Pastor Gregory would come home late more often, always with some excuse. "The church needs me," he would say, or, "I was helping someone in need." At first, Eleanor believed him, she always had. But now, the words felt hollow. The late nights, the hours that stretched on, and when he was home, he was different. More distant. More distracted. One evening, Eleanor found herself standing in the hallway, just outside their bedroom. She could hear Gregory's voice, low, too low, as if he was trying to keep something secret. Her heart beat faster as she listened. She didn't know who he was talking to, but the conversation felt wrong. There was something about it. Something she wasn't meant to hear. Eleanor tried to ignore the doubts. She tried to convince herself she was just being paranoid. But the signs were too many to ignore. The way he avoided her gaze. The way he would always make sure to lock his phone whenever he was around her. The way his smiles felt more like masks than warmth. It was like he was hiding something, something that wasn't meant to be discovered. And then, one day, Eleanor couldn't take it anymore. The whispers in her head were too loud to ignore. She needed answers. She needed to know. She confronted Gregory, face to face. The kitchen was empty, the sunlight streaming through the window. But the air between them was thick, heavy with tension. "Gregory," Eleanor said, her voice shaking slightly, "is there something going on? You've been acting strange. I've noticed the late nights. You've been distant." Gregory froze. For a moment, he didn't speak. His eyes flickered, like he was trying to find the right words, or maybe, trying to figure out how to lie without being caught. But Eleanor was watching him closely. Too closely. She could see the way his hands fidgeted, the way his breath caught. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment, but now, he was trapped. I don't know what you're talking about," Gregory finally said, his voice too smooth, too rehearsed. He stood up quickly, as if trying to hide his nervousness. "There's nothing wrong, Eleanor. You're just imagining things." But Eleanor didn't buy it. She saw it. She saw the lie in his eyes. The way his words didn't match his body language. The hesitation in his smile. It was as if the man she had known for years, the man she had trusted, was no longer the same person. Something had changed. She had changed. She took a step closer. "You're lying, Gregory," she said, her voice steady, but her heart pounding. "Something is going on. You're hiding something from me." For the first time, Gregory seemed to waver. His composure cracked for just a moment, and in that moment, Eleanor saw something she would never forget. She saw the fear. The fear of being found out. The fear that whatever secret he was hiding would finally be exposed. But then, just as quickly, he regained control. He smiled. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Eleanor," he said softly, "you're overthinking things. I've been busy. It's nothing to worry about." But it wasn't nothing. Eleanor knew that now. She could feel it deep in her gut, in her bones. Something was off. And no matter how much Gregory tried to convince her otherwise, the truth was slipping through his fingers. The cracks were showing. The perfect life she thought she had, her perfect marriage, her perfect husband, was crumbling before her eyes. But Eleanor wasn't sure if she was ready to face the truth. What was she willing to lose? Her trust? Her love? Or was the truth going to destroy everything she held dear? In Harrowfield, where everything seemed perfect, the lies were about to be exposed. And Eleanor was standing at the edge, unsure if she should take the leap. The question was no longer if she would uncover the truth, but when. When the walls close in, when everything you've built starts to crumble, a man is faced with a choice. A choice no one should ever have to make. Pastor Gregory Mills had always been the trusted leader, the man with the answers, the man everyone turned to. But behind his sermons, behind his perfect family, a dangerous secret was brewing. And now, it was about to destroy everything. It had been days of silence between Gregory and Caleb. The bond they shared, the secret they kept, it was tearing them both apart. Caleb had no idea what was about to happen. He trusted Gregory completely. He didn't see the cracks forming in their world. He didn't know that for Gregory, the stakes were higher than ever. His reputation. His family. All of it was at risk, and Gregory knew that if Caleb's secret got out, nothing would ever be the same. It started with a walk. A simple, innocent request. "Let's go for a walk in the woods, Caleb," Gregory said, his voice calm, controlled. Caleb, always eager to be close to Gregory, to feel his approval, didn't hesitate. He followed. They walked together in silence. The trees whispered around them, but inside Gregory's mind, the storm was raging. The weight of what he was about to do, what he had to do, pressed on him, crushing him. But there was no other way. With each step, Gregory felt the distance between them grow. He was no longer the mentor, the friend. He was the predator. Caleb, naive, unaware, kept talking, laughing, like nothing was wrong. He didn't see the change in Gregory. He didn't see the coldness in his eyes. For Gregory, the choice had already been made. The lie, the betrayal, it had gone too far to turn back now. There was no escape. Not for him. Not for Caleb. Gregory's hands were shaking. His heart pounded in his chest. His mind screamed at him to stop, to turn around, to tell Caleb the truth. But the words never came. Instead, the sound of the trees, the rustling leaves, filled the air like a warning he couldn't escape. It was too late for redemption. Too late for forgiveness. And then, there it was, an opening, a secluded spot in the woods. No one would hear Caleb's screams here. No one would know. Gregory stopped, forcing Caleb to halt beside him. Caleb smiled, thinking it was just another moment between them, another secret they shared. But Gregory's smile didn't meet his eyes. His face was hard, set with determination, as if he had already made the decision to end this. Caleb looked at Gregory, confused. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice still trusting. "Why did we stop here?" Gregory didn't answer right away. He took a deep breath, as if preparing for something that would haunt him forever. Then, without warning, he moved swiftly. His hands wrapped around Caleb's throat, pulling him close. The shock, the betrayal, hit Caleb like a bolt of lightning. He gasped, struggling to breathe, but it was too late. Gregory's grip tightened, cold and methodical, as if he had done this 100 times before. Caleb's eyes widened in confusion, in fear, but still, he didn't understand. He didn't see it coming. The life drained from Caleb's eyes. His body went limp in Gregory's hands. And in that moment, everything Gregory had worked for, everything he had ever believed in, shattered. He had made the choice, the only choice he thought he had. The air around them seemed to freeze. The woods grew silent, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Gregory stood there, staring at Caleb's lifeless body, his heart heavy with a mixture of guilt, fear, and cold resolve. What had he done? Was this truly the only way? Gregory knew the truth now, there was no going back. Caleb was gone. The secret would never leave this place. But what about the rest of his life? What about the lies he had built? The perfect preacher, the loving husband, the man everyone trusted, now, they were all gone. Nothing would ever be the same. But the worst part? Gregory knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The truth would come out. The world would know what he had done. But for now, there was no turning back. The body is found. The fingerprints are discovered. And now, Pastor Gregory Mills, the man who held the town in his hands, faces the consequences of his actions. Everything he built, his reputation, his perfect life, is crumbling, piece by piece. The walls are closing in, and there's no escape. The police are coming. They're piecing everything together: Caleb's death, the fingerprints on his body, the whispered rumors that have been spreading like wildfire. And now, every step Gregory takes feels heavier. His heart pounds in his chest, and his mind races. There's no way out. No way to hide. The truth is closing in, and all he can do is wait. Everywhere he turns, he sees the eyes of the town, eyes that once trusted him, once believed in him. But now? Now, they see nothing but a man who has failed them all. A man whose sins have finally caught up to him. The guilt eats away at him. Every moment, every second, feels like a weight that he can't bear. The lies, the betrayal, they all swirl in his mind, each one sharper than the last. He was supposed to be a man of faith, a man who guided others to salvation. But instead, he led them all into darkness. And now, there's no redemption for him. In the quiet of his office, Gregory sits down, his hands trembling as he writes. It's a letter. A final confession. A goodbye to the life he once had. He knows what's coming. The police will be here soon. They'll arrest him, humiliate him, tear apart the man he once was. But it's too late for regrets. Too late for apologies. The room feels smaller now, the air thicker with the weight of his decision. He writes the last words he will ever speak: I am sorry for what I've done. I couldn't live with the shame anymore. As Gregory sets the pen down, he knows this is the end. There's no turning back. No redemption. No more sermons. No more perfect life. The man he was, gone. The town he built, shattered. And the boy he betrayed, lost forever. Gregory stands up, his body aching, his mind exhausted. He looks one last time at the life he's ruined, the church, the community, his family. And then, with the weight of the world on his shoulders, he makes the final decision. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. And remember, every secret has its cost. What will yours be?